Welcome to the Honeycomb Hideout. I'm Habaka KFJ, best-selling author, BJ&G classic vocalist, radio host, and storyteller. You're in a place where music, stories, books, community, and local adventures come together. Find the room that's right for you. Today's episode is The Currency of Character. I'm so glad to be here, and guess what? I am so very, very glad that you're here. You know, we often think of currency as money, right? But there are other forms of currency we spend every single day. For example, our integrity, our kindness, our reputation, our compassion, our creativity, and our character. Long after the money is gone, those are often the things people remember. You know, I used to think success was measured by how many people knew my name or would know my name, because when I was a little girl, I had big dreams and I dreamt of being famous. I dreamt of being on the magazine cover. I dreamt of being a model. I studied modeling and I studied dancing. And so, you know, for me, that's what celebrity status was, right? And as I've grown wiser, now I understand that success is also measured by how deeply I've touched the lives of the people who do know my name. You know, I thought my grind needed to be seen to be a celebrity and to be financially secure. Now, I'm not saying that fame is not a good thing, because it's great, right? But for me, you know, I changed my mind about that as I became more deeply involved in my own artistry. And, you know, as I said, I had visions of being on magazine covers. And I was in love with the renowned Alvin Ailey dancers and Lola Falana. Do you know them? Have you ever heard of them? And because I was studying dancing, yes, I had big dreams of, you know, being on the big stage and the theaters and being known globally, worldwide, and becoming the very first 4'11" model. Imagine that, okay? But, you know, that's because for me, being that size, it didn't matter. And guess what? Nowadays, it doesn't matter. But then it did. And so, you know, and also dreaming about being interviewed on my favorite late night talk show. And, you know, but as I started growing up and being introduced to real life and being in the wrong relationship, and then also being more deeply involved in the music industry and finding out the good and the bad and the ugly and the evil of the music industry, of the modeling industry. And like I said, being in the wrong relationship, those ideas slowly faded. And I think that's a story for another book. But as my life changed and I grew into becoming the international vocalist, performing throughout Europe and some of the biggest blues and gospel festivals in the world, you know, my thoughts on being famous, or should I say, on being a celebrity, changed for me. I no longer had that desire to be famous. And to tell you the truth, I actually feel famous every time I step on the stage, because just like I tell my students, you know, whoever you are performing in front of, maybe they've seen you before, and many have not seen you before. And to whomever you are performing for at that moment, you are famous. And you have to give them your all. And, you know, I was the headliner, and I'm still the headliner. But what happened for me is, because I am a very private person, and I often thought about what would happen if I became a celebrity at another level. And for me, I did not want to sacrifice my privacy. You know, I value my privacy more. And so in my mind, yes, of course, I wanted to be known for my work, but I didn't, only to a certain degree. What I mean by that is I didn't want to be at the level of paparazzi, if that makes sense. And I was really good with that thought. I was great with that thought. And I'm still good with that thought, actually. And so we're going to take a small pause for a moment. I've got a public announcement for you. Hold on. So, have you ever been to my concert, or you've seen my Substack? Well, then follow Habaka on Substack, and also share this podcast with your friends. Give me a 5-star and leave a review by all means. Okay, thank you. And so back to the story. Ironically, my music and my voice is heard globally throughout the world, little by little, reaching those that need it most when they discover me on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, and more. You know, I didn't frame richness as I have everything. I framed it as character, integrity, compassion, purpose, and connection. Someone somewhere can discover my music through a playlist, a recommendation, a radio feature, or a streaming platform, and have a completely different experience of my art than the person standing in front of me at a live event. That's the unique thing about music. It travels without asking permission. A song recorded in one moment can meet someone years later in exactly the moment they need it. A voice can become a companion for someone who has never met the person behind it. There's also something very poetic about my journey. My father's musical legacy helped to shape my foundation. My own voice carried me across stages and communities. My radio, and you're listening to my podcast, give me another way to connect. My writing gives people another doorway into my thoughts. And my honeycomb gives all of those pieces a home. Financial success is one form of wealth, but there are other forms that shape a life. Richness of relationships, richness of experiences, richness of purpose, richness of creativity, richness of character, richness of the ability to show up for others. And you know what? That right there, that's the Habaka KFJ style. Really. A person listening on the other side of the world may never know all the chapters that brought me to that recording. They may not know the years of work, the sacrifices, the caregiving, the rebuilding, the courage. They just hear a voice carrying a feeling. And these are qualities that show up over time. They're reflected in the people who reach out because they miss hearing my voice. They're reflected in the listeners who discover my music somewhere in the world. They're reflected in the communities I continue to nurture little by little, one cell at a time. And a honeycomb isn't built in a day. Where have you heard that line before? Like Rome wasn't built in a day? Okay, that's really clever, Habakkuk. A honeycomb isn't built in a day, but it's so true. Honeybees, they don't build a honeycomb in one day. They build it cell by cell. And that's exactly what's happening in this honeycomb. It's being built one cell at a time. And eventually, those small cells become a home that nourishes an entire community. And guess what? I thought about this today. I'm treated as a celebrity within my own little honeycomb. And I'm grateful for the life I've built. And I'm grateful for the voice I still get to share. So, this is Habakkuk KFJ, and thank you for spending a little time with me here in the Honeycomb Hideout. Whether you've been with me since the beginning or you've just discovered this little corner of the world, welcome to the Honeycomb. I'm so glad you're here. I said that in the beginning, and I'm so glad that you're a honeybee. If today's episode encouraged you, help the hive grow by showing and sharing it with a friend, leaving a review and giving it 5 stars. And if you'd like even more stories and reflections, I'd love to welcome you to my Honeycomb Hideout on Substack, where every Monday I share a little something sweet. So, until the next time, stay real, real sweet. Bye-bye.